We played out on unlawful use of a firearm, you know what I'm saying? Some shit charge, 3 years probation with like a 15-year backup, you know what I'm saying? And that's another thing, man, I had to learn the hard way, man. Nigga be so pressed about getting up out of jail that you would just take whatever. They tell you can go home, we'll give you 40 years probation. You're like, I'll take it, you know what I'm saying? And you go home and then that shit'll come back and bite you in the ass later. Like I told you, shit, man, if I could do 10 grand, 15 grand on an album, you know what I'm saying, with, what, 20 hours worth of studio time, you know what I'm saying, $2,500 worth of beats, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And no features, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Get it,
yeah, you know what I mean? You profited 10, 12 grand off of one album and shit, you know what I'm saying? That's just in the city, you know what I'm saying? You start to hit these other spots and you force feed that. Like, man, look, nigga, we here. I tell niggas all the time, bro, I'm trying to get out of town and find 2 gun keys. Like, nigga, I'm trying to get to your city and who the nigga up here? You know what I'm saying? Like, bring you here. Like, who the nigga here? Bring you here.
They switch and hit the sander with your right hand. Day one nigga raise his right hand, lie to you when you're wild white. Swear to the white man and tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
This is 37-year-old Kayvon Beyfour, known as 2 Guns Key, a Kansas City rapper who was killed not long after being released from jail because of accusations of snitching after cooperating in a case involving someone close to him. On Friday evening, May 24, 2024, around 6:30 p.m., police responded to reports of gunfire near 31st Street and Van Brunt Boulevard in Kansas City, Missouri. When officers arrived, they found Kayvon slumped inside a pickup truck that had rolled into a nearby car wash, suffering from a gunshot wound to the head. He was pronounced dead at the scene. But what makes this case chilling is what came just before the shooting. Not long earlier, Kayvon had been released after serving time connected to a serious federal case, one he ultimately pleaded guilty to. In that same case, the other person involved received a life sentence. Now, even after Kayvon's sentence ended, the weight of that case never disappeared. Questions lingered, rumors spread, and some believed the outcome of that case had placed a target on Kayvon's back. But for us to understand how his past became tied to his final moments, we have to go back to where his story really began. This is the life and death of Kayvon Beyfour.
Shadows and stones, fought these battles on my own. I feel like same niggas capping was just rapping all of my songs. Wish I'd have known niggas ain't feel me, I'd have felt me. Should've known niggas wasn't real when niggas ain't help me. Had to do it all on my own, niggas ain't help me. All that dead weight ain't healthy, I keep...
Kayvon Beyfour was born in the 1980s in Kansas City, Missouri, a place that shaped how he saw the world long before he ever picked up a microphone. His mother was still a teenager when she had him, which meant his childhood came with challenges early on. Life around him moved fast, and stability was never guaranteed. From a young age, Kayvon learned to pay attention to his surroundings, to people's moods, and to the unspoken rules that governed the neighborhoods he grew up in. Those lessons didn't come from textbooks or classrooms. They came from watching what happened to people who made the wrong choices, trusted the wrong person, or spoke at the wrong time. As he got older, those lessons became habits. Kayvon wasn't reckless, but he wasn't sheltered either. He understood how quickly situations could change and how one decision could follow you for years. Family mattered to him, but the environment around him often pulled harder than guidance could. Kansas City wasn't just where he lived, it was the foundation of his identity, shaping his mindset, his priorities, and eventually his music. By the time he was around 15 or 16 years old, Kayvon had already stepped into street life. It wasn't a sudden drop or a dramatic moment. It happened gradually, shaped by influence, opportunity, and the feeling that this was simply how things worked where he was from. At that age, the risks didn't feel permanent, the consequences felt distant, and the future felt like something that could always be dealt with later. But even as that life took hold, something else was forming in the background. Music entered Kayvon's life around 2003 when he started rapping with his cousin in his aunt's basement. At first, it was casual, something to pass the time and express thoughts he didn't usually say out loud. Over time, it became more serious. Rap gave him a way to talk about pressure, loyalty, fear, and survival in a way that felt honest to him. His lyrics weren't exaggerated or flashy, they reflected what he was seeing and experiencing in real time. As he continued recording, he adopted the stage name Two Guns Key, a name that reflected toughness and reputation rather than symbolism or metaphor. In the culture he came from, names carried weight, and once you chose one, people remembered it. His music began circulating locally through word of mouth and online platforms, and while he wasn't famous, he was becoming known. That recognition gave him confidence, but it also made him more visible in a city where being visible can come with consequences. And before long, those worlds collided. On November 11, 2007, Kayvon had his first major encounter with the criminal justice system. He was arrested in connection to a shooting that followed a disturbance at a Kansas City nightclub. According to police, shots were fired from a vehicle after an argument, setting off a police response that included surveillance footage, witness statements, and a chase that ended when the suspect vehicle crashed. By the end of it, Kayvon was taken into custody. The charge was serious: murder. That arrest changed the direction of his life immediately. He was no longer just a young rapper trying to build something. He was now facing the possibility of spending decades behind bars. Bond was set high, and the case carried weight from the beginning. The situation forced him into decisions that most people his age never have to consider. For a time, Kayvon bonded out, believing the case might work itself out or be reduced. While waiting, he leaned even more into music, releasing his first project, Rex and Rap Cuts. For him, music was something he could still control while everything else felt uncertain. It gave him purpose during a period when his future was completely unclear. But then, a warning arrived that he couldn't ignore. About 6 months later, Kayvon was shot in the mouth. He survived, but the message was unmistakable. This wasn't random violence. It was connected to the life he was living and the attention around him. Instead of stepping away, he poured the experience into his music, releasing his second project, Legend Himself, where he rapped openly about pain, survival, and fear in a way that felt honest to him. Still, the legal case from 2007 never disappeared. As time passed, Kayvon found himself under constant pressure to make a decision. And so, Kayvon had no choice but to accept a plea deal. At the time, it felt like the only way forward. He was facing a serious charge that could have sent him to prison for decades if he went to trial and lost. Instead, prosecutors offered a reduced charge. The murder charge was lowered to unlawful use of a firearm, allowing him to avoid an immediate long prison sentence. But that deal came with conditions that would quietly control his life for years. As part of the agreement, Kayvon was placed on probation with a 15-year backup sentence attached. That meant if he violated probation or picked up another serious charge at any point during that time, the court could send him to prison to serve those 15 years. The punishment wasn't gone, it was waiting. At the time, Kayvon later admitted he didn't fully understand how serious that backup sentence was. In interviews later in life, he explained that plea deals often pressure people into choosing speed over clarity. Instead of risking trial, many defendants accept whatever gets them home fastest. Kayvon said he believed he could stay out of trouble and move on with his life. He didn't realize that one mistake could bring everything crashing back down. And that misunderstanding mattered more than he knew, because once that deal was signed, every future arrest, every police stop, and every bad decision carried extra weight. His past was no longer behind him, it was legally attached to his future. And not long after that plea deal, things took another sharp turn. On November 24, 2008, Kayvon went to visit his co-defendant at the jail. The visit itself was unusual. The two were tied together by the same case, and Kayvon had bonded out while the other man remained incarcerated. Kayvon later said he went there to explain why he was home and the other man wasn't. But what happened after he left the area would change how he viewed everything. After finishing the visit, Kayvon got back into his vehicle and drove away. He said he checked his surroundings, something he had learned to do out of habit. Even with that awareness, it wasn't enough. Not long after leaving the area, gunfire erupted. Kayvon was shot in the mouth. The injury was severe, but he survived. At the hospital, officers attempted to question him about the shooting. Kayvon refused to cooperate. He told police that even if he knew who shot him, he would not press charges. He made it clear that he did not believe in cooperating with law enforcement and referenced loyalty to his gang. At the same time, he made another statement that stood out. Kayvon told officers he wanted to leave that life behind. He said he was tired of getting shot and tired of the violence. He claimed he wanted out before things got worse. But wanting change and being able to escape your environment are not the same thing. And what followed showed just how hard it was for him to actually break free. Between 2009 and 2011, Kayvon was arrested 6 times. Each arrest followed a similar pattern. Police found drugs, police found firearms. Each incident added another layer of risk, especially with his probation and backup sentence still hanging over him. Despite the repeated arrests, the state system did not keep him locked up long enough to interrupt this cycle. He was released multiple times, and each release sent him right back into the same environment. But eventually, someone else stepped in. In February 2011, federal authorities brought a sweeping RICO indictment that changed the direction of the case entirely. Kayvon was charged alongside several others as part of a federal conspiracy involving drugs and illegal firearms. Prosecutors alleged that he was connected to the Trey Wall gang as well as a smaller group known as Click Clack. This was no longer about individual arrests. Federal investigators argued that the activity was organized, ongoing, and dangerous. The case focused on patterns, not just moments. According to court records, the alleged gang activity traced back years and involved multiple members working together. Kayvon was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. He ultimately served 9 years.
And that's another thing, man, I had to learn the hard way, man. Nigga be so pressed about getting up out of jail that you would just take whatever. They tell you can go home. We'll give you 40 years probation. You're like, I'll take it. You know what I'm saying? And you go home, and then that shit'll come back and bite you in the ass later.
That sentence removed him from the streets, but it also froze his life during some of its most important years. When he went in, he was still young. When he came out, he was older, more cautious, and carrying the weight of everything that had happened before. Still, prison did not silence him. After his release, Kayvon returned home and returned to music. One song in particular marked a turning point. Titled Vent, the track gained over 1 million views and became the biggest release of his career. The song wasn't about bragging or threats. It focused on regret, paranoia, and the fear that danger doesn't disappear just because time passes. In interviews following his release, Kayvon spoke openly about his mistakes. He acknowledged that changing himself didn't mean others had changed. He warned that old enemies don't always move on, even when you do. Despite understanding that risk, Kayvon stayed in the same environment. He didn't leave Kansas City. He didn't put distance between himself and the places tied to his past. Some of that came from loyalty, some of it came from familiarity, and some of it came from believing he could manage the danger now that he was older and more aware. But awareness alone isn't protection. And on Friday, May 24th, 2024, that truth arrived without warning. At around 6:30 p.m., gunshots rang out near 31st Street and Van Brunt Boulevard in Kansas City, Missouri. Officers already in the area heard the shots themselves and moved in immediately. What they found was not a random scene. It was the aftermath of something deliberate. A witness nearby pointed police toward a pickup truck that had rolled into a car wash just off the eastbound Interstate 70 exit ramp. The vehicle had not crashed at high speed. It had drifted, uncontrolled, as if the driver had suddenly lost the ability to keep going. And inside that truck was Kayvon Bayfor. He had been shot in the head. First responders rushed in and tried to save him. Every effort was made to stabilize him at the scene, but it became clear almost immediately that the injuries were too severe. Kevon was pronounced dead there, at the car wash, at just 37 years old. But what made the moment even more unsettling was what investigators believe happened just before. Police say the shooting occurred near the exit ramp, and that Kevon may have tried to drive away after being hit, or may have lost control almost instantly. The truck traveled only a short distance before rolling into the car wash, stopping not because the danger had passed, but because his body could no longer respond. And just like that, everything stopped. However, the violence itself wasn't the only shock. What followed was the silence. As the scene was secured and evidence was collected, one thing became clear very quickly. There was no obvious suspect. No one was taken into custody that night. No weapon was recovered. No clear motive was announced. The shooting appeared targeted, but the person responsible had vanished. But then came the realization that hit even harder. Despite Kevon's long history with the justice system, despite his music openly warning about danger, and despite surviving a previous attempt on his life, investigators were left without answers. Knowing someone feared violence did not explain who pulled the trigger. Knowing his past did not identify his killer, and that left the case hanging in an uneasy place. As of now, no arrests have been made. Police have not publicly named a suspect or person of interest. The investigation remains open, with detectives continuing to review evidence and follow leads, but without a breakthrough that brings clarity. And that unresolved ending is what lingers most. Kevon Before had spent years speaking honestly about consequences, regret, and how hard it is to escape your past. He warned that changing yourself doesn't mean the world around you changes too. He knew the risks. He talked about them plainly. He tried to use his story as proof. But the same environment that shaped his early life never stopped being dangerous. And in the end, the warnings he gave didn't stop what came for him. Kevon Before's death did not just end a life. It left behind people who are still living with the consequences. Family members were forced to grieve in public, while also protecting the children he left behind from a story they are still too young to fully understand. Those children will grow up knowing who their father was through memories, music, and headlines, rather than everyday moments. That absence is permanent, and no investigation can undo it. What makes this case especially difficult is the pattern that surrounds it. Kevon's life followed a path that many recognize but few escape. Early exposure to violence, repeated contact with the justice system, brief moments of progress, and danger that never fully disappeared. Not as an excuse, not as a lesson meant to shame, but as a reality that continues to repeat itself in communities where leaving is harder than staying, and where the past does not loosen its grip easily. And still, the most troubling part remains unanswered. Kevon Before's killing is unresolved. No arrest, no suspect publicly named, no clear explanation for why that day, that place, and that moment became the end. For his family, that uncertainty makes grief heavier. For the community, it keeps fear alive. And for investigators, it leaves a case that refuses to close quietly. Why does it still matter? Because unresolved violence does not fade on its own, because stories like Kevon's are not rare, and because until answers are found, the silence left behind continues to speak louder than the truth ever should.
Shadows and stones, fought these battles on my own. I feel like same niggas capping was just rapping all of my songs. Wish I'd have known niggas ain't feel me, I'd have felt me. Should've known niggas wasn't real when niggas ain't helped me. Had to do it all on my own, niggas ain't helped me. All that dead weight ain't healthy. I keep reminiscing about G and all of that shit that they used to tell me.
What do you think about it? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.